Alright, so welcome back. Today I have another lot of eBay model trains to unbox. This one is all Locomotives that I again bought for $40, which you'll see once I get this thing open that was a pretty good deal. I'm just going to make sure there's no paperwork or anything hiding in here, which it does not look like there is. So let me start going through all this stuff. First off is an engine that I've already got something really similar to. I can get this tape off. And that truck's fallen out too. This is a Tyco. I believe this one's actually older, as the truck frames just fell off. I'll find it in the box later. But this is, while it's in very rough shape, it is a Mantua Tyco, which I believe is the era right before Power Torque, Alco C630, which I've got another one of these, which I don't know if I'm going to part this one out or what, but it might be a project for the future. Next up is another engine that I've already got one of, although I believe this one's actually in nicer condition than the one I have. At least cosmetically. This, if I can just pop this back on, this is a Tyco Clementine, which, as you might know, I've got one. It's been a really problematic engine for me, so hopefully I can get this one working just as well as that one now. Alright, next up, if I can get this one once again open. This is another engine. This is the one that I saw and I really wanted to get the lot for. This is actually, I believe, a Varney Casey Jones model. It's a 460. This one looks like it's been painted up to the PRR, but this might be another project for me someday. I think I might need to get, I'm going to need to get a tender for this thing wired up at some point if we want to test it out, but that's going to be a problem for later. Next up, it's another very similar type of engine, which looked in the listing like it had issues, but we're going to find out now. Which, yeah, it's got some issues, but this one is, I believe, a Rivarossi, or AHM, or whatever you want to call it, Casey Jones, which it looks like it's going to need a few parts and a little bit of work, so we'll see what happens with that one. Next up, this is another not that interesting engine, but it was just kind of thrown in here. This one, I believe, is a powered, lifelike GP40 of some sort. It's in a really rough cosmetic shape, if you couldn't tell, so that'll be a fun project, which hopefully you're able to see all these things as well. Next up is another engine that I've already got something really similar to. Actually, several things really similar to. Again, trying to crumble on me, but this is a Rock Island Shark Nose, which, if you're not aware, I've actually got a nicer one of these already. Next up, I have a Mantua F7, I believe. I actually had one that was really similar to this, but it was missing a whole bunch of parts. This one actually looks like it's got most of the side frames, aside from this one, so that'll be a good project. Next up's another engine that I've owned in the past, but had issues with. This is actually a Bachmann. It's a chrome silver F unit. I had one before, but it had cracked gears, so we'll see how this one performs. I believe there's just two more engines left in here. See if I can get the tape off of this one. But this is a little switcher. I believe it's just blue box. Yeah, this is a blue box PRR switcher. Kind of nice looking. It will also probably need a little bit of detail work. It's missing one of the side trucks here. All right, and last but not least, I believe this one is another blue box unit. This one is an Atlantic Coastline F unit of some sort. I believe this is actually a Marks or Varney shell or something like that, which is kind of interesting sitting on this chassis, but it is a really interesting model. So let me clean up everything here, and I'll give you an overview once again of everything, because I'm not sure how well this video turned out. Alright, so now that it's all out of the box, I'm just going to go through these things one by one again, because I'm not so sure how well that last clip turned out. First off, I'm going to start with this. This is a Athearn Blue Box. This is a PRR switcher of some sort. This one looks like it's been custom painted. It's kind of rough. The handrail on this side's falling off, and it's missing the side frame over here, if you saw me mention that in the other clip. This one right here is a Rock Island Tyco Shark Nose, basically identical to the one I've had before, but this front truck is falling out. This is an Athearn Blue Box. I believe it's an older one, judging by the underframe here, with what I believe is a Marks shell on it. I've never had an Atlantic Coastline engine, so it'll be another interesting project. Next up, we've got another F unit. This one's actually similar to one I've had before. This is a Bachmann, I believe it's an F3 or an F9 or something, and it's just a really shiny chrome one. I had one of these before, but it had cracked gear issues. This is a Mantua F7. I've owned a few of these before. I think this is the first one of this exact style that I have mostly complete, minus the side frame, which I believe I have a spare side frame, so that'll be a fun future project. This is an engine that's kind of falling apart, but it's really similar to another thing I have. This is a early Tyco Manua Alco C630, so it'll be a fun project. If not, I might end up parting this thing out and using it to complete my original Tyco C630. We'll see. This one right here is a Tyco Clementine. As you might know, I already have a Tyco Clementine, but this one's actually in nicer shape, so we'll see if we can get this one working well. This is a lifelike, I believe, GP38-2. I've had one of these before. This one's in much worse shape. I might actually have a spare shell of a different lifelike unit I could throw on it, but we'll see how that'll work out. This is an AHM Casey Jones, which is missing a lot of the parts on this side of the unit, so I don't know how well we're going to be able to get this thing running. I might end up removing this one specific side rod, just to see if we can make it work, and save the parts and see if we can get this thing complete later on in its life. And lastly is the main reason I bought this lot, which will probably be a big project in the future. This is a Varney Casey Jones 460. It's going to need a tender to be hooked up to, but that should be accomplishable. So I'm going to clean up just a little bit more. We'll take all these engines over to the track, and we will see if any of them run, because this whole lot was sold as non-running. Alright, the first unit I'm going to be testing out is the switcher, the SW unit. I'll give it some power. We'll see if the thing wants to start. I saw something briefly. I got something, and now I'm getting a short circuit. So this thing's going to be a project engine for the future. Alright, next up we've got the lifelike GP38, which I'll give it full power and nothing. Sometimes they can be brought back to life pretty easily, but this one has nothing at all. So it'll, again, be yet another project. Next up, I'm not even sure if this thing will be able to run without a tender, but we're gonna see. This is the, the AHM Casey Jones. I'll give it some power. Nothing forwards. Nothing backwards. I'll see if I can hook up a Rivarossi tender to it. That won't match the thing at all, but we'll just see if that'll get the thing to run. Alright, so I was just looking at it. This tender actually has a different connection than all the other Rivarossi engines I've seen. I think it needs a tender to run, which is why it doesn't currently. But this thing will anyway be a project for whenever I can get it some more parts. So this thing will be sitting around for a little while. Next up, I've got the Tyco Clementine, so I'll give this thing some power and see if it'll move at all. And it seems like it's got absolutely nothing. So, yet again, another broken project engine. Next up is the AHM, or not AHM, the Tyco C630. I'll give this thing some power, and we'll see what it does. I'll probably end up parting this thing out, but you never know. That's full power. And it's got absolutely nothing. It looked like it had some shady wiring. So, I don't know. We'll see if I want to make a video out of this. We'll see if I part it out. You'll find out at some point. Somehow I managed to save all the F units and similar engines for last, so first up of them is the Tyco Shark Nose, which actually seems to run perfectly fine. I'll run it around here backwards, and then once it gets back here, I'll see if I can get it moving forwards. It's definitely sluggish, but I'll see if I can get it to do a lap or something. I know you can't see it right now, but it's definitely struggling. So this unit does actually run, but it's definitely going to need a whole bunch of work. Next up, I've got the Mantua F7. We'll see if this thing runs. I'm not going to be surprised if it runs. These things usually are built like tanks to an extent. And apparently, I've got nothing out of it. So once again, another project engine for a future video. Next up, I've got the Oddball Blue Box F unit. We'll give this thing some power. And it is sparked to life, apparently. Not exactly what I was expecting. Let's see if it'll go backwards. Indeed it will. And I'll bring it back here. So this one, while it does need some work, is a good engine. Next up is an engine that I'm not too sure about. We'll see. It's the Bachmann, I believe, F9. I'll give the thing some power. Surprisingly, it runs, and it doesn't have any cracked gears. So that'll be a nice engine to have around. I've always really wanted one of these chrome F units that actually works well. So that's a pleasant surprise. All right, I haven't found any good setup to test this thing out, so I'm just going to try and put the wire to a rail by hand, see if that'll work. We're getting something out of it. Whatever that is doesn't sound that great. Well, we did have something out of it, but it locked itself up. So it's definitely got some life, but this will obviously be a future project. All right, so for those of you who stuck around to the end, thanks for watching. All these engines are going to make some great projects in future videos, so stay tuned for all of those.